All right, welcome everybody to According to Andrew number 16. This will be a makeup. I'm going to do two today. One of these will be a makeup for Monday because I missed Monday. Anyway, I wanted to talk about some stuff I noticed. So I just finished up Witcher 3, Blood and Wine. It was great. Um, but I had some more thoughts on kind of some of the stuff that came out of it because spoilers, I guess, if you haven't played through it. Um, One of the endings to it uh, didn't. There was no law and order or rule of law ending to the story, which kind of bugged me. And I didn't get. There's three endings, and there is none that allow like a rule of law kind of ending. So there's one where the two sisters make up. I'll give more context to the story in a minute. Um, there's one where uh, the main villain person just dies before like giving a proper being given a proper trial, and then there's one where both of them die, and it's like I don't know, none of that was super satisfying. Well, I don't know, it was kind of satisfying, but anyway, the main thing I saw highlighted was when one of when the main Duchess. So okay, let me give some story context for those of you unfamiliar. Um, there you get summoned to the Duchy of Toussaint, which is basically France in The Witcher, and um, you have to figure out who's killing. They've had a series of high-profile murders. You have to figure out who's murdering these people, um, and based on the dismemberments and stuff like that, it seems like it's a monster. Turns out it's a vampire. You got to go stop this vampire. Then it turns out this vampire is being blackmailed to commit these murders um, because his someone uh, he loved has been kidnapped, and so they're blackmailing that you have to do this or we're going to kill this person. Turns out that this person is not um, the person that was blackmailing him is the person that he's loved. She was never captured, and she was just emotionally manipulating him. And it also turned out to be the sister of the Duchess who hired you to solve the murders, and she was going to murder her sister along with these four knights. Uh, is that enough context? Oh, and then the man, I guess I have to tell the whole story. Um, the four knights that she was going to see, or that she wanted killed, ended up being the people. She was exiled when she was a kid because they thought she was cursed, and she was a problem child basically, which is kind of extreme. But she was exiled. The four knights that she had killed were part of the group that basically took her to exile. She tells you that they abused her when they went out there. It doesn't sound like sexual stuff, but uh, you know, uh, not feeding her, beating her, kind of things like that. And so she grew resentful against them, and then comes back and murders them later, and then wants to murder her sister for not sticking up for her when she was like 8, or I don't know how old they were, but they were like, it sounded like not even in their teens, kind of thing. Um, so probably between like 8 and 11, somewhere in that range. Uh, so that's the backstory. Um, so as they're coming down to give, as the Duchess Anna has to give out this uh, order, one interesting thing that she says is, how am I supposed to condone my own sister? She's my own blood. I cannot treat her like a common criminal. And this kind of raised some red flags. Not red flags, but like raised some interesting questions in my head. Um, because this clearly shows in the societies a delineation, and in reality, most societies have worked like this, between rule of law and law of rulers, right? So you have the common law the law for the commoners that gets applied to everyday people, and then you have a different set of rules for like the nobility, right? They can commit treason and murder people and stuff like that, and it's fine because they only killed commoners, kind of thing. Um, and that's something that traditionally Western civilization has tried to get away from, um, and tried to law base their law on the idea that nobody is above the law. That uh, if there's a law on the books, it applies to everybody. It doesn't matter what your social status is. It hasn't necessarily always been followed, even in Rome, where this kind of tradition stems from. Uh, the consulate and the senators and stuff like that, the aristocracy of those of that time, definitely were not held to the same rules and as the plebeians. Like you could just go up and stab a plebeian basically, and it was fine. The amount of uh, the amount of people that were killed where they were like talking for the plebeians, that position, I forgot the name of it. The amount of times they were just murdered with impunity is somewhat terrifying. And one of the reasons that led to a boiling over of tensions in Rome and caused the collapse of the Roman Republic. So, as we can see, rule of law is important. If you claim that you have these ideals and you don't follow them, and then people see that you don't follow them, then rule of law breaks down. So, now the setting of this whole game is in the 1200s in fantasy Europe, basically in Poland. Somewhere in the border of like Poland, Russia, Holy Roman Empire area. And I guess in this particular story, we're in France. But so like law of ruler isn't uncommon, and it's something that's probably the norm for this era and time period that it's set in. But it's kind of interesting because the way they set up Geralt is he's supposed to be this kind of uh, rule of law kind of person, right? He supposedly has these principles that he tries to stick to, and he doesn't deviate from them. And you get put in these binds all the time where you kind of forced to break them, or like there's certain aspects of the game that kind of force you to be inconsistent with them, right? You'll run up on a group of bandits and you'll just slaughter them with impunity, but then you'll go all the way out of your way for the Duchess's daughter or Duchess's sister who has done way worse things. Here's the thing: you don't know what the bandits did or whatnot, and it's kind of implied that they're evil, blah blah blah. But in reality, like you don't even give them a chance a bunch of the times. Like there's one mission in there where you're going to rescue Sianis and the vampire's lover person who you think are two different people at the time, before you find out it's the same person, and she's been coordinating the whole thing. And you just like invade this guy's property and like slaughter all of his guards with impunity, and it's like you're not the good guy in this situation. Like, sure, there's context that they don't have of why you're doing these kind of things, but the matter of the fact is, like, these guys were just hired to do a job, which is protect the property. They're doing their job, and you're just butchering them, and no concern. And then like, there's one weird part where the guys, you guys are attacking, so he's like, well, I'm out of here because I don't want to die. I don't know why you're attacking. Like, what the heck is going on, kind of thing. And it's assumed that he's in on the plot, and then it turns out he's not in on the plot, kind of thing. And so in that regard, like, maybe some of the guards are culpable, kind of thing. Like, they know what's going on. But based on how this whole back alley thing has worked, it doesn't seem like that. And we've seen with these like giant corporations and stuff like that, and how these spy apparatuses work in the United States, that it doesn't take that. You don't need that many people in on a plot to be able to act it out over a large group of people. So you go and you fight this guy, right? and you slaughter all of his guards. They don't matter because they're just nameless NPCs. And this is like an aspect of games. I get it. I'm not saying that, get rid of this kind of stuff, but it'd be kind of interesting if someone kind of challenged some of these ideas in a game. It would be kind of, I don't know how you do it, but it would be interesting. And then like this guy that's a nobleman, like you kind of give a chance, and then he like kind of says a spiel, and then you don't have to let him go, but I let him go. Um, and it's like, well, you ever give the normal people a chance, and it's this weird thing you see all the time where we don't want to believe that there's like two sets of people where it's like here's a group of people that matter, and then everyone else doesn't, and they're just expendable, they're slaughterable, they're the people that work. It's kind of that delineation between your noble and your commoner kind of thing, and for some reason the noble's life's worth more because, and you can't really define it. You can't get rid, and sometimes there are people who are worth more intrinsically. Um, just Usain Bolt, let's just say. Um, if you kill him, you're killing the fastest person that's ever lived, right? He has a unique trait that you just can't get in another human, just out of the blue. And so maybe they're like with some of these ancient families and stuff, there was unique traits with the original founders that made them worthy of the status that they have. But like as we've seen, usually over generations, the reason that they were selected to be unique or whatever usually degenerates and doesn't hold water in future generations. I'm getting off topic though. So to come back to that thing. So how am I to condone my own sister? She's my own blood. I can't treat her like a common criminal. So it goes back to this whole rule of law of ruler thing. You're not supposed to have different standards for the two, but they do. So in Geralt's case, he's supposed to have a set of principles where it's like he gives people a chance. And in the set pieces that they have, he does give people a chance. But it's interesting because it's not, you don't run up against the law of rule or law of rulers. Correction. Rule of law or law of rulers very often. Mainly because, especially in The Witcher 3, like you're in a war zone. There's not really any laws. You don't, like, besides obvious stuff of don't steal, don't commit murder, there's no defining characteristic of like how Geralt should be conducting himself. There are some flyers stating things like that give you kind of the impunity to go kill deserters and brigands and all that stuff, where it's like if you find brigand camps, the crown will reward you for taking care of it, blah blah blah. So like they give context as to like why you are allowed to just go out and slaughter groups of people with no real reason. But what was I gonna say? Oh, but it does run into this kind of divide in one situation that I was able to think of. So there's this quest, and I had talked about it on a previous episode. I don't remember exactly. I think it was when I was doing like a Witcher 3 review. But one of the things that you run across is there's this Nilfgaard soldier and these Temerians that catch him, and he's a deserter. Now, Nilfgaard had said any deserters that get caught, they're hung, no questions asked. That's our rule. And if you catch one, you have the right to hang them. So these Temerians catch this Nilfgaard soldier. They want to kill him just because he's Nilfgaardian. They're like, you Nilfgaards came through, you destroyed our homes, you slaughtered our families, raped our women, kind of thing. Like, we just want revenge. That's their MO. And as Geralt, you're kind of stuck there, and then the sympathetic argument for the Nilfgaard soldier of like, because you can choose to protect the Nilfgaard soldier or allow the guys to hang him. And the sympathetic thing is like, I deserted because I want to get back to my family. All this war stuff's crazy. I can't take it, kind of thing. But at the end of the day, like, you don't, and it's a sympathetic story, right? Like, you don't know what crimes he's committed. You don't know like how many people he's slaughtered or raped or any of that stuff. How many people he's killed on the battlefield, how many prisoners he's strung up, or deserters he's strung up. Um, there's no, besides feeling sympathetic for him yourself, there's no real redemptive arc. And so based on that, I decided to go with the rule of law thing. Also, it's kind of implied that you're gonna have to kill these Temerian guys, and it's like, okay, well, if somebody's gonna die, then I guess we'll just kill the one guy. Um, but it ultimately ended up being a rule of law thing. The rule says if you catch a deserter, you can execute him. These guys caught a deserter. Sure, their motives aren't aligned with the reason for it, but the law is catch a deserter, kill him. Okay, so then this is contrasted with a different story later on in like the same area. And this brother is trying to this guy is trying to find his brother who fought on the battlefield, and he's hoping he's still alive, and he's paying you to track him down and keep the ghouls away. You track him down, and then you find out this other Nilfgaard deserter ended up saving his life. Basically, there's a war. The whole thing was the battlefield was crazy, and this guy kind of stumbled off into the woods and kind of ran for his life. And through various reasons, this guy went out and found this Temerian soldier, so they're on opposite sides of the war, and he went out of his way to save his life. And you have the option to kill this guy too. I chose not to, but based on the rule of law, like, because now I'm acting as law of ruler, basically, right? Because it's arbitrary. Here's the law, and I chose when to apply it and when not to apply it. And the law says, if you're a deserter, you die. Period. End of story. No wiggle room. So, why? Why am I choosing to be arbitrary, seemingly? And does this still sit with kind of the moral code that Geralt has, which isn't really well defined, but I guess the best way to maybe put it is given the opportunity to give people a chance, you give them a chance, and if they fail, then you kill them, basically. So they say, "Oh, I'm very sorry," or and also like the punishment has to fit the crime, right? So there's one quest where you get drunk with some guys, they steal all your stuff, you track them down, and then you steal all their, or you don't steal your stuff, you make them give you all their stuff, right? So it's like, you're not killing them in that situation. Punishment fits the crime. You thought you could get something over on me, now I'm going to take the stuff from you to meet the crime. So that's kind of Geralt's thing. It's not super well defined. So this fits in there because there's a redemptive arc, right? So this Nilfgaard. So in the first situation, Nilfgaard soldier, you don't really have any. You know he has a family. You're sympathetic to the fact that he has a wife and a kid on the way, or maybe a young kid, and you're sympathetic to that idea. But at the same time, that's contrasted against you didn't seem to have any of that sympathy when you were raiding and killing all these people in this village, and you didn't really, besides just deserting to kind of save, like, there's plenty of reasons to desert to save your own skin kind of thing, because it's like, oh, I'm deserting not because I'm slaughtering Temerians and that's a bad thing, and the killing's getting too much. It's like, I could potentially die on this battlefield, and so I want to flee to be able to get home and be able to see my kid kind of thing. And while that's honorable, it's not as much of a like, there's no reflection on your previous actions that say that you are changing your ways of thought or behavior. Compare that to the other Nilfgaard soldier who put at massively his own risk to save this Temerian guy. He didn't. If he gets caught as a deserter, he gets killed. There's no reason to save anyone from the other side. By spending this time saving him, there's less and less time for him to be able to flee and get a safer and safer distance from any potential threatening place. There's just like lots of reasons why he shouldn't do this, but he does. And so in that regard, you give him the benefit of the doubt and be like, look, you might have done some terrible stuff beforehand, and that's probably both same on both sides of the aisle kind of thing. When armies roll through, destruction follows in their wake. That's just how the nature of how those work. So this character has this nice like redemptive arc. So now we'll take that and we'll compare that against the non-redemptive arc of Sienna, who is the Duchess's sister. So in this, so for some reason they give her a redemptive arc, but like there's no redeeming qualities about her. So the let's see here. So first she decides to manipulate a vampire to do her deeds for her. Okay, that's just not a smart decision. But okay, you did it. And her plan was to kill the 4 knights that had escorted her into exile, and then to kill her sister. Now, you can make the argument that the 4 knights deserved it, and she was bringing justice to those knights, and therefore those crimes should not be punished like murder because that was them getting their comeuppance, basically. And sure, I can buy that argument. The problem is, that argument does not hold for the 5th, which is the Duchess. And while that plot never took place, like, that is still trying to execute the sovereign, even if they're only like at the ducal level. And so yeah, and then on top of that, all 4 of those murders aren't they're self-serving. So she didn't kill one of the knights while they were like abusing someone because they came across them, and it's like, oh, why are you, it's like no Robin Hood thing. Steal from the rich, give to the poor. There's no, like, every one of those kills is her getting revenge. Even if there's people who are helped by them being removed from being knights, like, there's no one helping them. Or there's no redemptive quality to killing them off. It's simply for her own self-serving interests of revenge. Then she wants to kill her sister. Okay. So from here, when they go to the trial, you could there's like a dialogue that could potentially happen where she's very sorry. She's like reflected on what she's done and is like, oh, I feel, I've made as many mistakes as the previous person, or like as you have. Instead, what happens is she basically puts her sister, who's the one trying her and has the possibility to kill her, on trial, basically. She's like, you were mean to me when I was a kid and didn't stand up for me and blame things on me. Which, okay. And that ended up with her being exiled. So I get where that's maybe a point of contention. At the same time, this was 20 years ago. She lived. She isn't a duke or a duchess anymore, so I can see how that would maybe still tick you off to a certain degree. But, like, you can't hold people, like, for things they did 20 years ago like they happened yesterday. Like, at a certain point, you gotta be a grown-up and get over it. And then it's like, at the same time, none of the stuff being held accountable for her own actions. Like, not, like, sympathetic at all about the fact that she manipulated a vampire, which then caused him to go into when he found out he's being manipulated, into a rage that sent a bunch of vampires down on the main city of Beauclair and slaughtered a bunch of innocent people, which were a direct outflow of her actions. Doesn't feel bad about that at all. So, like, in my mind, this person should be executed. Period, end of subject. But that's not even an option. Technically. There's no one where, like, there's a trial and then she ends up executed. So I don't know. It's just there's no like redemptive arc, and it would have been kind of nice to, as like one of the options is because like her sister forgives her, and they kind of imply that she forgives her, but like there's no real dialogue that shows that she has any sympathy or feeling of regret in like almost anything. Like the only thing is like I regret getting caught, basically, is how it boils down. So kind of weird, but ultimately it's the Duchess' decision. She's law of rulers. She gets to be arbitrary and decide whatever the heck she wants. That's how it is. Fine by me. Um, but it was just kind of something interesting, and I thought that was kind of a good way to show um, how some of these systems and ideas and stuff like that kind of come in conflict with each other, where you have like your principles that conflict with how the law is interpreted and should be done, and how arbitrariness can make you give more leniency and be more sympathetic to characters that are actually you are allowed to be sympathetic for, and you can't um, that you can actually talk to and stuff like that. There's no option to go into the bandit camp and talk to them and catch up and maybe join the bandit crew, right? And I get it, it's a game, there's limits, yeah. But it's kind of interesting to see how all these systems kind of work together and like counterbalance each other, fight against each other for trying to understand what's going on in this whole system, and it creates like a complex layer of ways you can look at this stuff. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But give me your thoughts on the whole matter, and please like, comment, subscribe if you thought it was interesting, and thank you for listening.